we all hear over and over again, communication is key. But so many people avoid communication because they disguise it or mix it up with confrontation. And I think if you do have the communication frequently, then there's no need for confrontation. Hello and welcome back to the Beauty Industry Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Kennedy, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Elli Forsyth. How you going, Elli?
I am good. The sun is shining here in Victoria, which is so pleasant because usually by now it's raining. But apart from that, my businesses are thriving. I'm happy. I couldn't complain, honestly.
That's a win. What exciting things have been going on in your life outside of business? I saw that there was a cheeky little reel that came out the other day.
There was. I am pregnant. I am 26 weeks pregnant. And I am just going. I'm going. I don't know how else to say it. I think when you're pregnant, you've got a toddler and you're working a lot. You just kind of get through the days each day as it comes. But no, we did announce I get to have a baby boy. So that's really exciting because I've got a girl currently. My husband's very happy about it. And yeah, now I've got to deal with being a boy mum, which is going to be something different for me.
Oh, that's so exciting though. You're going to have so much fun with all the fights that are going to come from your children. Like my brother and I'm pretty sure we were borderline having domestic abuse, like next level when we were that young. So I pray for you. Good luck.
Thank you. What's happening in your world, girl?
What's happening in my world? Well, I'm heading off to Vietnam in less than a month, which just feels insane because 2 years ago I went, I loved it. I was going through a breakup. It was a bit of a hectic time and I was just backpacking, doing all the things. But this time I've definitely healed. I'm going with my beautiful partner, Nick, and we are just doing a lot of wholesome things. I think when you're in business, you're always focusing on what's the next thing, let's launch this, let's do this, let's hire this person. And you get so caught up in the day-to-day where you forget to have fun. And if you follow me, you probably know I take a few trips a year. And that's because my whole life leading up until the last 2-3 years, I never traveled. I never had holidays. Between growing up in high school, being in all the family businesses through to then studying full time, running a business, working 50 to 60 hours a week, and then doing coaching and podcasting, like I actually need to take this time off so I can get my creativity back. And I find I actually use these holidays as a way to celebrate what's to come rather than celebrating the hard work I've already done. So I can like take that time, have fun, fill up my cup, and then get ready for the next 6 months and season of the year. So I'm really excited for that.
Wow. You know what? I miss traveling with our kids, but I'm so happy for you. On that note, just as you're talking about how you came straight out of college or straight out of school, went straight into the family businesses and whatnot, I think that people forget that even though you are a little bit younger, we won't talk about age numbers because that'll make me look terribly old, but most people in their early, like 18, 19, 20, 23 even, they're all traveling. You were not traveling. You were literally working, work.
Girl, got to make money, you know. I guess for me, the interesting thing I saw growing up was you work hard and you get by. And there was no kind of reward or way of celebrating. And it was kind of impending doom of like, just keep working. And I think until my friend at the time, she finished her uni degree and she said, I'm traveling for a month. I had never thought of, I could just book a ticket and go. And I paid for a passport. I went on the trip and I realized, wow, like it's literally a mindset block. And so for me, when I was around all the girls doing Miss Universe and I was around people my own age, all of them were splurging on designer handbags.
Yes.
They were trying to buy the latest Mercedes or BMW to impress all their friends. And for me, a lot of my money was just constantly reinvested back into the business. So much so that if you were to add everything up now, last time I counted, which was about 6 months ago, it was $130,000. And I know I've paid for a few more things since then. So all the money that's gone back into my own personal development and the business has actually been a big sacrifice that now allows me to do this. Like I recently went to Sydney for 10 days. I went to Melbourne earlier this year to meet you. There's just been so many cool opportunities that have come from it. And it was restrictive at one stage. I did sacrifice a lot of things, but now it has paid off. And I think when you know what your plan is, you realize, what is this Australian dream? Like everyone thinks, go to uni, get a degree, work a 9 to 5, retire at 65, then go travel and live your life. And I think when I saw what the economy was doing and then also having a lot of people in my network that were twice my age, I realized how much people kind of sacrifice or the wrong route they go and then they get trapped. Like they spend their 20s to 30s getting a brand new car on a loan, getting a massive mortgage, having kids, and then they've just got themselves into $1 or $2 million debt that they have to pay off for the rest of their lives. Whereas I was like, okay, from 20 to 30, let's invest, let's make as much money as we can so that I could retire at 40. And people laugh at you and they're like, that's not possible. I'm like, I'm not going to wait until I'm 65 to retire. Like I probably won't retire because I love working and I'm a go-getter, but like the mindset's, it just completely switched in me.
And it's also the life you want to live, and whatever work you're doing works in with the life that you want to have.
Oh, 100%. Some people would not want my life. Like they're like, how do you do bowling and how do you do podcasts and how do you travel and how do you have your one-on-one clients? I'm like,
and
you know what?
How do you go into the same institutionalized job every single day, 9 to 5? But we're all wired differently and we've all got different drive and we've all got different aspirations and the way we want to live our lifestyles. And sometimes, like I've got girlfriends who are so happy to do the 9 to 5. So
And some people love
it.
being stay-at-home mums too. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that.
I envy it sometimes. I'm like, okay, girl, you get up and have your coffee. You go do this. You go for a little shop, pick up the kids. I'm like, why do I have to be so driven to want to like succeed or travel more or do this or do that? You know what I mean? So yeah, totally fine.
I just think above anything, know your why. Why are you doing this and what do you want? And I think it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks as long as it's not hurting them, unless it's like parents that have unrealistic expectations and, you know, all that thing. But, you know, as long as you're not physically or emotionally harming someone intentionally, you know, go live your life. Because I think we get so caught up in trying to impress other people who don't even really care that much. There's all these expectations. And I think when you stop comparing yourself to all your friends, the influencers you see online, the business owner down the road, and you just get clear on like, this is the life I want. Let me build the business that supports it. That's when you go, I don't care what anyone else says because I'm happy and I'm doing what I enjoy.
And that small circle of people, like I feel like in the past year of me starting what I've started and where I'm at now, honestly, I feel like if you've got 5 people that cheer you on so freaking loud, no one else actually matters. But anyway, today we're going to dive. I need to cut it short. Otherwise we'll be chit-chatting forever, girlfriend. We're going to dive into something that I feel like so many salon and clinic owners deal with, but no one really talks about it. And it's about what to do when you hire someone and it's just not working out. And then you're faced with the hard decision of letting them go. Today, we're going to talk about the probation period and what it actually means from a leadership perspective and how to handle things when it goes sideways, even if the person is in a senior role, like a manager. So, Sammy, you've had a very real experience with this recently, and I know it's going to hit home for a lot of people, but would you be able to share a little bit about your journey so far?
100%. I think anyone who has listened to enough of these episodes knows that I speak the truth and I'm honest, maybe too honest. Maybe I don't need to share all this stuff, but I think it's important to have these conversations because so many people struggle and no one else is talking about it. They're not able to get support, or they feel ashamed or embarrassed that it's not working out. So recently, I've worked really hard to create the business strategy that's allowed us to scale Wild West Bowling to over $700,000 in 5 months. Amazing. I didn't even think that I could do it that fast. I thought, you know what, maybe we'll hit 1 mil or 1.5 in our first year, but we're well on track to hit 2 mil by the end of this year. So very exciting. But with all that money coming in and a lot of customers to serve, you've got to add more team in. And that has been something that's been really out of my comfort zone, because I generally thrive in marketing, sales, and finances. But the whole HR side feels like a whirlwind. We've hired 9 employees since we've started, and it's come with so many new challenges and different personality types. You've got different availability. You're trying to get rosters to line up. You've got different skill sets. So someone's coming in and they've been taught something one way, whereas someone does it a different way. And then there's conflicting ways, like little stupid things, like how you stack the fridge and put pizzas in. Yeah. Someone goes and puts it in one way and then another does it. And you're just like, what the hell? And then I know this isn't relevant to everyone, but it's worth speaking about. Being in a family business, you've got different mindsets, and, 80% of the time you're aligning. You think, okay, this is how we're going to handle it. These are our goals. But then when you've got your dad who is 55 and then you've got your 53. Oh my gosh, I hope he doesn't listen to this. And I think I'm making him older than he is. No, I'm pretty sure dad's 53. 54, I don't know.
It's 50.
Yeah. It's fine. And then my mum, she's 47, and then I'm 22, and then my brother, he's 20. So my brother and I already grew up in a different era. We have a different mindset. My dad's kind of in that stuck in his ways, and you've got to really, I'm like sitting there going, you guys need to do some mindset and leadership work, because you can't have that same mindset that you were running the old bowling alley with the new one, because it's just a completely different game. And I know that with that comes so many new challenges. So with all of this, hiring people, what we're looking for in hiring people, I'm obviously going in with like, what is the role? What are the responsibilities? What kind of skill set or qualifications do they need? And sometimes my dad's gone, oh, this guy, yeah, he's been helping out at the rodeo, and it's someone who's got their teeth missing and looks like an alcoholic, and, he's cheap labor. And I'm like, Dad, like, he's a nice guy, this guy, and like, hopefully this doesn't get put in the highlight reels for this podcast cover, because I don't want it to show up on my Facebook and he sees it and gets offended. But, sometimes my dad hasn't hired good people in the past. We once had an employee who died. He was so manipulative. He used to I know this is a bit of a tangent, but he would create problems and then act like the hero. So he started doing these break-ins to bowling, the old bowling alley, and he was smashing in the doors, and then he hit himself in the head and made it look like someone hit him in the head. We had extra security. There were a whole lot of measures. We got it on camera, and then he actually went, allegedly, we don't 100% know because he's dead and we can't ask him now, but he went to the opposite side of the road when he was living at go-karts, lit this fire, and it actually burnt a whole Camtrans truck, which was worth $250,000 of damage. When it happened, he called up the police and he's like, there's a fire, it's out of control. And, if you're doing something or you're associated, you're going to be stressed, right? But if you're a normal person walking, you're going to go, oh, there's something I think you guys need to check out. There's a different kind of energy of behavior. So there were a few things that happened. He had his best friend, he skinned her cat alive. Like, it was pretty messed up. And we had let him kind of live and work with us. He was kind of homeless. I don't know. This is a long time ago. And this is exactly why I don't trust my family with the hiring process and why I was in charge of it. But after that, he then was driving down the road with this lady's cat that he skinned alive. They were like best friends. She didn't know this at the time. And then they had 50 car batteries in the back of the car. And the police think that he pulled the wheel, and they went into a storm drain and they got frazzled, like they were fried. They melted because of all the battery acid. So that was an experience with an employee where I was
just went into a different podcast where we're talking about freak murderers, accidents. Like that
For all
went
my crime lovers, true crime lovers, here you go.
safe to say Dad is not hiring anybody ever again.
No. But like, anyways, back to where this is all going. Recently hired a manager and thought, you know what? We need an expert to come in, help us out. And look, he was great. First month, 2 months even, he was showing up, helping out. He negotiated with some sales reps, helped set the bar up, and that's kind of what we needed him for. But then stuff started slipping through the cracks and it just wasn't good. Like, we started experiencing a lot of dictatorship. He would come into the venue saying like, this is not happening in my venue and my thing. And it's like, well, it's actually our venue. But, you know, I get that you're proud and you want to take ownership. But hey, there were things like I was selling out events with marketing, and then he would go, oh, that event sold out. I'll take that pay raise now, thanks. And then there were kind of other things that were going on where there was a bit of workplace bullying, I guess. If he didn't like someone or he didn't think that they were good at their job, without training them, without providing feedback, he'd just drop all their hours. So I'll get into it a bit later, but those were a few of the things that were coming up, and we obviously put him on a 3-month probation period, which learned a lot of lessons through that. But that was kind of the start of this whole hiring journey. I guess the more serious part, because this was more of a senior role, right? When you've got casuals, you can kind of just cut their hours and they can drop off, or you can have those conversations like, we're not going to renew your contract. But with someone who is more in that senior role, there's a lot more trust. You're exposing your business a lot more, the numbers, you know, the systems and processes, or lack thereof, because we were just reactively hiring, but learned so much. So Elli, I really want to start with the basics. When you go to hire someone, what is the probation period and what's the real purpose of it for both the employer and the employee?
All right. So I think that sometimes probation periods can get a bit of a bad rap, or it feels a little too formal. But I honestly think they're such a valuable part of bringing someone into the team. Like, personally, I like to work with a 9-day probation period, but it's not just the length of time, it's what you're doing within those 90 days that makes the difference. So what I like to do is, when I take someone on board, I like to pre-book a 1-hour check-in every 4 weeks. That means 3 structured meetings throughout the probation period. And I say structured because it's not just a casual catch up, and it's not just a little chit chat for both the employee and the employer to kind of work out what's happening. I feel like it's so much more than that. These meetings are a chance to go over how things are tracking. So whether that be talking about what they need to improve on, or being upfront and clear about the direction that they need to go in, it just needs to be a bit of give and take with where they are, where our next steps are, and where we're going to go from there. So from the employee side, it's just as important. These meetings give them the space to ask questions or get more support if they need it, and also to reflect on whether the role of the business is the right fit for them too. I think that's a really big thing. I think that people go in jobs and they know they want the job, like it looks so appealing. They're having the space is amazing. They want to be a part of the business. But when they actually get into their role, if they're given the opportunity to sit there and reflect on who they are as a person and what skill sets they actually have, and if they don't fit with the business, if you've got a good employer saying that that's okay if that doesn't fit, and them being open and honest about being like, I don't think I can actually do that. Or is there a way that I can have additional training for that? That kind of transparency is such an important part when you're onboarding someone. So it's not just a 9-day countdown or a process where you're just running it because you need to. You genuinely need to be checking in, aligning, and making sure that you're both on the same page and setting the tone for success.
I think that's really valuable what you said about it needs to work for the employee too. I think sometimes when I look at the very few jobs I've worked for other people, more so as a contractor, or maybe when I was younger, I worked at Officeworks, and then I also worked at Body Care, which was a gym. And I got put in a sales role at Body Care. And I remember I was like 17, getting paid $25 an hour. Officeworks was only paying like $13, $14 an hour. So obviously loved working at the gym more. But I remember getting put into this sales role where I had only just kind of randomly picked up reception, and they're going, you have to make $2,500 in sales today. And I'm like, wait, what? How? You know, and if someone were to have sat down with me and said, how are you feeling about the role? What training or support do you need? I wouldn't have just gone, nah, I can't do it, I'm leaving. I would have sat down and gone, I actually really want to learn. And I think if you don't create the space to ask those conversations as an employee, you're also too scared to ask because it's a brand new job. You know, you're not in a position of power to start making demands unless someone approaches you and asks for honest feedback. It's just like, great example is, you know, when you move jobs, or you have a new employee that's just come to you and then they're asking for it, hey, can I go to Vietnam for a month? And you're like, you just started like 2 weeks ago. But for them, they might have planned this trip a year ago and they weren't expecting. Like, all these conversations, they make a difference. And if you don't have them, it leads to resentment. Now, Elli, do you think that most business owners, whether it's in beauty or just in general, do you think they actually take the probation period seriously, like what you were explaining to do? Or are we just relieved to have someone in the role and hope it works out?
It's a good question. And honestly, I think a lot of business owners want to take the probation period seriously. But the reality is we often just, I think business owners are relieved that they've found someone in the role and they kind of just cross their fingers and hope for the best. Like, recruitment can be exhausting. And you're going through people upon people upon people, and you finally find someone, and the temptation to just kind of throw them in and hope it all just works out and clicks is, I think, what a lot of business owners kind of fall into. And that mindset can be so risky, because if we're not intentional during those early weeks, little issues just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you're left almost too far into the probation period to kind of take them back. Or maybe you're like, oh, okay, well, cool, we'll just kind of throw you in. So I think the probation period isn't just a buffer in case things go wrong. It's actually the golden opportunity to lay the foundations, right? It's our chance to guide and support and check in regularly. So we're not leaving things to chance. And I think the best part is when you do take it seriously, you're way more likely to end up with someone who's not only a great fit, but also feels confident, clear, and supported in their role. So yeah, I'd say many business owners don't always give it the attention it deserves. But I think with a few small shifts, it can make a huge difference to your long-term, like, hiring process.
I think even with the whole hiring process, people might be listening to this wanting to hire, or they're in the early stages of hiring, and it's so easy to compare and go, oh, well, I don't have all these things set up. And like, most of the time you don't, to be honest. Like, it comes with building the business. And I think that was something I learned. Because I have you surrounding me, I have my friend Chrissy, I have all these people like Danielle in HR and leadership, I realized how much needed to be set up. But at the same time, some of this stuff does have to get built and found out over time. Like, you don't always have a perfect onboarding manual with every single procedure, system, process. Like, sometimes you might have a basis, and then over time you've got to build more and more out. Same with having Andre, my amazing VA. You know, the first year we were just winging it. I was probably like not even utilizing her to the best of my ability because I was too stressed out, didn't have enough time, didn't make time for her actually.
Yeah.
And then when I started saying, hey, let's sit down, do a training, hey, let's have weekly team meetings, oh my gosh, performance, productivity, everything changed. And I realized for me, when it comes to hiring, no matter how much stuff's going on, if you're taking people on, you actually have to be real with yourself and cut back your hours and dedicate the time to them and invest in them, because that first, like you're saying, 90 days, but especially the first 30 days, they know if they're going to stay with you long term or not based on how you treat them and what opportunities you give them.
So with your recent experience, you hired a manager and it didn't work out. Talk me through what happened.
You know, when you're like dating someone and the first couple dates, they are incredible. You're blown away and you're just like, wow, they're the one. And then, maybe 3 months, things start to slip up. By 6-month mark, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in a relationship with a full-blown narcissist who is toxic and controlling. That is pretty much what I experienced with this manager. So the first couple months were great, and then slowly started noticing narcissistic traits, like literally looked up the word narcissist and the definition. I was like, tick, tick, tick. There was a very big dictator style leadership, like I was speaking before. All talk, no action. I hated this. I am someone who genuinely believes if you're good at something, your results or actions will show that. I don't have to go here and be like, Ellie, I'm the best in the beauty industry. Like, I'm the best podcaster. Like, I don't have to sit there and tell you. I'm like, this is who I am. This is how I show up. Take it or leave it. And I think with this manager, he was always having to say, I'm the best bar person. I've done this. I've got all this thing. I was meant to move to this role. I gave up these opportunities, and it just kind of felt a bit ick. And I think what happened is we didn't start doing meetings and start getting everything on track because we were so burnt out, so stressed out. We had so much going on, like school holidays. We opened during the busiest peak period you could ever imagine. And we let a lot of things slide because we just had to show up and serve customers and get by. And I think a lot of people relate to this in the beauty industry because you're just doing clients. You're doing like, when do we have time for a meeting? And it's like you have to almost think, I need to prioritize blocking out this hour to have this conversation because it's going to save me many more hours of like uncomfortable problems coming up later on. So I guess we realized that the probation period was coming up, probably the week of it, because we just lost track of time. And an experience I had was like I had organized this event with him and then he was calling it his event. I was like, you know what, maybe he just needs some credit and just to feel like, he's doing something, which is great. So I was like, you know what, you do all these things, didn't organize them, followed up a second time, followed up a third time, finally got done. I went, all right, I'm launching with the marketing materials, sold out the event in 72 hours. And then I get this, yeah, I should get a pay raise now, thanks. And then he went into work. And then when we were having meetings and in front of staff we were employing, like doing interviews with, he was going, well, just keep in mind that my pay will be going from 35 to 40 an hour. And he said in one day 4 times that his pay is going up. And I just kind of sat there and I was like, I don't like this arrogance. I don't like coming into the workplace and feeling like this person is bossing me around. Another problem we had was I understand people have families and kids and all of those things, but we actually found in our experience that we were working everything to be around the manager. So I've got kids this weekend, so I can't work. Well, we're a bowling alley. That's our busiest time. So, every fortnight we didn't have anyone there. And so we were like always working around their schedule, not the other way. Didn't request leave. How funny is this? Went, did all the rostering, didn't tell any of us, and then realized he's not going to be there for the first week of school holidays. There were just so many things that just really hit me. And I went, you know what? This isn't working. It's not a good environment to be in. It's actually not bringing the vibe of or the energy of the place. Dad got to the point where he didn't even want to go to work if he was there. And so that's when we were like, you know what? We need to do something. Had a conversation. Dad pulled him aside and said, do you have the ability to empathize and understand how other people feel? Do you have the ability to self-reflect and look at your actions? He didn't like that. And yeah, that was, I think, on a Friday. And then by the next Wednesday, Mum and Dad got back from Perth. He'd come in, gave the key and walked out. And, we were kind of in this awkward position, like, end of probation period, we're probably not going to renew the contract. Is this going to be good or bad? Is he going to blow up? And it just kind of got really, really full on. And then you got to the point like, nah, I don't need this. This is my business, or this is our business. Like you kind of get it as the business owner, you're thinking, I've built this. I don't deserve to feel this way. And I've had this conversation with some of my clinic owners. One manager is bringing so much energy into the business that's negative, and it's making all the employees leave. And then it's like, you need to get rid of that manager before you lose everyone.
Yes, I was
So,
about to say that. It'll be interesting to see over the next few months how certain staff members almost blossom now that they're not being, I don't know.
They're not anxious on edge.
Literally, not anxious. In amongst all of this happening, what were some of the first red flags that you noticed that made you start questioning him being hired?
Oh, when you see a red flag and you choose to ignore it, the first one was talking about how he was an approved manager and he'd had all this experience working at a previous manager role in another venue. And basically, when we went to launch the bar, which is why we hired him in the first place, he didn't have his approved managers. So you get your RSA, and then there's another level above that, which is your approved managers. And we're like, how have you been talking about all this bar stuff and all this experience and all these things, but don't have your approved managers? It's unclear whether he said he had to renew it. We just hired someone on and he's had his bar managers since 2016. You don't have to renew it by the sounds of it. Like it's there. So we're kind of questioning now, wow, did he even have it to begin with? So that was a massive red flag that we actually chose to ignore. So that's on us. And, obviously paid the price later, paid for him to do the approved managers. He got it done. It was just, that was the first one. The next one was always talking about how good he was. So if you're always saying how good you are and you're the best and, putting other people down, saying that they're nowhere near as good as you, that's a big red flag, because I think, like anything, we always have something to learn from someone else. And if you're good at something, it'll be shown through your actions, your results, your achievements, not through the words you always have to use. It was just a very big need for validation. And then the other red flag would have been, this is getting a bit more personal, but, I would get calls and be on the phone with him, and then he would almost be feeding me information about my mum and dad and pitting us against each other. So you and I, we need to go do this. And
there's a narcissist.
Yeah. And I actually, after all this happened, because mum and dad and I, and my brother, we all have a family group chat. It's called Keeping Up with Kenners, Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Yeah, I love it.
And we put everything in there. And, there was one day where I was really burnt out and, this is another red flag. This event, he went and got there was 25 door sales. This is just for people who rock up on the night, they missed out online, they want an equal shot to get a ticket. And he'd gone and allocated 23 of the tickets. I was like, you didn't ask anyone, you didn't tell us. And it was all to his new girlfriend and all her work. And I was like, what the hell? And so that was another thing. And I said to him, please get them to purchase through the link, because if they purchase through the link, it counts the sale, money gets paid, they're secured a ticket, we scan them in on the night, so much easier. Then he went to my mum and said that I was being grumpy and I was being rude because I told him to do that. So there were little things like that where I was going, hey, hold on. So not only was it stuff happening he hated one of our sales reps, which, to be fair, the sales rep wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. However, don't go and bring your personal problems into the business. And we got to a point where we realized, he either really likes someone or really hates them. So this is another red flag that I started to realize. People wouldn't come into the business because of him, because they didn't like him and because he was nasty. So it's there were lots of little things like that started building up over time, a lot more ego over team culture. So, I think for us, we really needed to have the regular team meetings. So if we were looking at the structure of the meetings, it would need to be a directors and the manager. So more the people in that senior role who are really driving the strategy of the business. Then the manager and one of the directors needs to have a meeting with the team that are on the floor, that are working with the customers, who are in the kitchen, at the bar. And then, we need to have one-on-ones with the manager. We did ask the manager to have one-on-ones with the staff. I think I asked 3 or 4 times. And it never got organized. And it's like, oh, this person's not available. They're not in while I'm in. And I said, well, too bad. Get them in after school. You come in on a weekend, like you make it happen, And I know that sounds a bit harsh, me saying it like that, but when you get to the point of asking 3 to 4 times and you keep getting excuses, you're like, I'm paying you to do this job. Like, you need to follow through with it. And I think as well, when you're a people pleaser, it's really hard to bring up those uncomfortable conversations. But when you get to the point where you realize, I need to put the business first, what's best for the business? Is this costing us money? Is it making us money? Is it making us happy? Is it making us anxious? Like, you start to realize
other staff, like almost thank God he didn't have one-on-ones with those staff members, because all I'm hearing right now is manager versus leader, full dictatorship, all the excuses, doesn't take accountability for his staff. Like, we've gone through this before in the other podcast talking about managers versus leaders, and he genuinely, and I don't know what his age gap was, but if you want the best out of your team, all of these things that he's doing, like even having 23 people, come on, even if I was in the business, I wouldn't cost my business 23 tickets, for goodness sake. Like, you might invite 3 of your friends, not 23. So who in their right mind thinks that as a person who hasn't even been in the business for 3 months can have the authority to do that? It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
Imagine if you were in a salon and you're like, yeah, I've just invited 20 of my friends and I'm giving them all 50% off or something. You'd be like, what the hell are you doing? But, at the same time as all of this is happening, it's really made me reflect. And as much as it's been uncomfortable, I'm like, I need to take responsibility, because I could have had a better hiring process. I needed to go through and do more research, more background checks. And yeah, I think there's a few lessons that I've definitely learned.
All right, what's your top 3? What's your top 3 lessons that you learned from this situation?
Number 1, have a more thorough hiring process. So do your background checks and research, like I was saying. Don't just go off a resume and interview. When you're reactively hiring, you're just trying to bring people in because you're like, we are burnt out. We don't have enough team. We've got back-to-back bookings. Like, we need someone to start today. If you can, try proactively hire ahead of the time and know that you can give them the training and the support so when the busy period hits, they're ready to go. You're not trying to just do it all at once, because it's just an absolute nightmare. And then also with the people, and I guess this is kind of one thing that I will definitely do in the future, call the reference and ask why they left the job, and then ask the employee why they left their last job, and see if the answers line up.
Yeah.
So something we noticed is that he walked out before we could fire him.
Yeah.
And then also at the previous job, same situation happened. He left and came to us and made it sound like, oh, he's coming and helping us, where he was actually losing his job at the previous place. So that is something that I will definitely check. Why did you leave your last job? And then why does the reference say you left your last job?
And when you do leave your job, a lot of business owners don't do this. They don't do an exit interview. And it doesn't have to be a sit-down interview. It can literally be a questionnaire that you send to them about and if you are a really good business owner and you are invested in your business and your team, asking them, what could have been done differently whilst you were working here is such an important question, because you'll learn so much more, whether that be, hey, I left because, like in your circumstances, if other staff member had left and you had had the opportunity to ask them, and 3 all of a sudden leave, and it's like, well, what's going on here? Did another bar open up and everyone just wanted to go over there? Or no, actually, we're leaving because the manager you've hired, although he might blow wind up your ass, for us, he is absolutely horrible and we don't want to come into work. I think the exit interview is such an important way to align and leave the business good. I mean, obviously he didn't leave the business good and he would have probably not have done an exit interview, but I think that that's something that's really important as well.
Well, we have said to him, you're more than welcome to come in. It is a good venue and we want it to be friendly for families and groups. So it has left on good terms. I sent him a message and said, thank you so much for all your help and your support. Really appreciate everything you've done. In that situation, you could get really upset and be like, you know what, stuff them. They've done all this thing. Or you could just never talk to them again. But also you've got to remember that they did sacrifice their time to come in. And as much of, a great person or an asshole they are, we don't know because everything's a lie these days. No, I'm kidding. But, to actually just, you can be the person to leave it on good terms, and you have that power. And that is the power that I took. And I went, you know what? I can be the person to go first here. That's what leaders do. And say thank you, ended on good terms. He said something nice back. I was like, cool, that chapter is now closed. There's no like, oh, do I need to overthink this? Are they going to post something nasty about me on social media? So like that's something that I would probably also add. One of the other lessons that really hit me was, like you were saying, having more regular meetings around expectations, roles, responsibilities, training, and that onboarding process. So now I would have like a list of things that like week 1, this is what we're covering. Week 2, we train in this. Okay, week 3, now we do a check-in, or week 4. So then that way it's more structured.
Have a document. Like I love when when anyone onboards a business, it's almost like they get their own personalized folder. It's like, here's our values, here's our mission, They have it on paper. Here's our probation period with it marked out, like the transparency of it actually being marked out and structured, and having a tick box to say, we're going to book this on the 23rd. Does that suit you? Like it's give and take, but having that actual folder and them knowing this is what we're doing, as well as you, not just you knowing, oh yeah, we'll do this and we'll do that, but ticking it off, that gives them the security of also knowing that just as much as you say all of this and that and everything else, it is actually happening.
I agree. I think that that's a really valuable tool to have, and also something that you will refine and build out over time. It's like you need to understand, why is this person coming to the business? What things do they already know? What things might they know and need to relearn in our way? It's kind of like, it's the same as training. When someone's gone and done an online lash course, or, I've done this online cosmetic tattoo course. And it's like, hold on, you may have learned something, not necessarily the wrong way, but a different way than we do it. And we need to make sure that that's consistent and aligned with the business. Like makeup artists, how some people do brows first and then other people do brows last. Like it's just, what is the way that works? Is it getting the result is probably the first thing, but like, consistency is everything in the brand. And that's what I loved you saying about the mission and the values. When you launch a brand, you need to be clear on what the identity of that brand is, and make sure that everyone in your team is aligned to that identity. If you've got people who are A players, they're driven, they have a sense of initiative, and then you've got someone here that just like takes everything, freeloader, doesn't put any effort, like you want to drop them straight away because they're not adding to the team culture. They're actually taking away from the team culture and lowering the morale.
All right, Sammy, I need one more lesson from you, one more lesson that you've learned.
Okay, for future, we are definitely extending the probation period to 6 months.
Oh, yes.
So I know you said 90 days, and I think that that is still valuable, and it's going to be different for every industry. However, for us, if we have 6 months, that will kind of allow us to go through multiple school holidays and busy periods in the business and different seasons. And so we can actually see how they perform under pressure, how they perform in the slower periods of times. And also for a more senior role, which I don't think we'll be hiring, I think we're going to do some in-house training to really get mum and dad up to speed with how to do the management and leadership side. I do a lot of it in the back end, but I don't enjoy it. And I think that it's also unfair of me to always be doing this stuff. Like I was happy to get the business set up and going, but I think at the same time, I'm like, if you don't want to hire, then you need to learn, because this is essential for the business to run. So really having the 6-month probation period, it will give us enough time to get past the honeymoon kind of period and then see, what's their attitude like. We can do one-on-ones over a more extended period of time. We can offer training in those first 3 months to get them up to speed, but then see how they implement that training, because I think 3 months goes by so quickly. Like
it does. So what you're saying is like your first 3 months, you have your probation in place, like the structured meeting, And then in your last 3 months, it's actually letting them freely work and seeing how much they've taken on and how much they're now putting back into the business on their own without being coached or supported or trained.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think we'll still do team trainings because it's good to keep everyone aligned. And then as we're bringing in new products or services, we've got to obviously make sure everyone's across it. However, I think, yeah, the first 3 months is important to invest into them, but then the next 3 months are seeing what are they implementing, what is their performance like without all the hand holding and guidance that they need in those earlier stages. So, Elli, based on all the information that I've shared today, what could have I done differently or improve on for the future?
Okay. If I was to give 3 pieces of advice, 1 would be the interview questions. 2 would be having a really clear, structured onboarding experience. And 3 would be staff feedback. So with the interview questions, instead of just ticking the box or have you worked, just asking those real surface questions, I think talking more about specific scenarios, like, you know, tell me a time about how you had a challenging customer and how did you handle it and what was the outcome. Those kind of questions are gold because they show you how someone actually thinks and behaves under pressure. And it's not what just is on their resume. We're getting more of a personalized, I suppose, answer. Having a clear, structured onboarding process will make the biggest difference. So laying it out from day one, let them know what their first weeks will look like, when their check-ins will be, what support will be available, the way that they're not left guessing what's coming up moving forward. And in regards to staff feedback, don't underestimate the value of team feedback. Like, these people work alongside your new hire day to day, and they will often see things and feel things that you won't. So really creating a safe place for your team to share honesty can give you that insight that is both practical and powerful. And from a business owner's perspective, it's all about creating clarity and structure. And from the employee side, I think it helps them feel supported, seen, and it sets them up for success. And really, that's just the biggest win-win there is.
I love all of that. And I think looking back now, like, this was probably one of the most valuable experiences to have earlier on rather than, 12 months from now. Like, we've got it over and done with. And now it's like, cool, how do we improve for next time? So I'll definitely be taking all of that on board, and I appreciate you for sharing that. Definitely think the interview questions was one that you start to realize as things happen with staff, what you need to ask. I think in those early stages, I've got 100 interview questions across different things, different testing skills, behavioral-based, skills-based, etc. And it's not until these problems come up that you're like, oh, I probably should ask that question next time. So now I have a little notes section on my phone, and every time something comes up or happens, I just dot point it down. So then I can go back to the hiring process and go, okay, we need to check this for next time. Like, I want to see them prove you have your bar manager's certificate. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I reckon people get that with beauty too. Beauty is really interesting because it is so unregulated to the point where we could just, pretty much watch a YouTube video if we wanted to and offer that service. Like, no one's really checking. Yes, you can get an accreditation, which I strongly believe is going to be beneficial from an insurance and legal perspective. However, you don't have to. You can do an online course these days. You can do all of that. And so those online courses, those trainings that are not accredited, they're good for people who just want to start their own business and do their own thing. But when you've got someone who's running a professional business, and when I say professional, I mean you've got a team, you treat your business like a business, not a side hustle. You're serious about growth. You're serious about how you manage the team culture, performance, etc. You're kind of looking for people who do have that diploma in beauty or who do have those qualifications, because sometimes your insurance won't cover them, or sometimes you don't know what training they've been through. And I understand that, TAFE and all those things, it's quite outdated. It's not great quality. However, some employers will want to know that you've gone and done the appropriate training to have the job.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
And it's hard to find the wages as well. That's what I found. Like when you're going in and trying to qualify what pay grade they sit in, if they don't have, like if the employee hasn't done a certification in beauty, then and they've done an online course or something, or they've gone and done a 1 or 2 day training, it's really hard for you to know what should I actually be paying them? What do they classify as? Because I don't want to pay them at a grade 5 when really they might only be a grade 1 or 2. And so that's the whole thing. Actually, what are your thoughts on that? Have you had that happen with previous clients?
I've had clients who have onboarded staff members that are still in amongst their training.
Yeah, okay. But they're not hiring anyone that's not doing training outside of TAFE?
No.
And you're working with salons that have teams of like 5 to 10?
5 or more, yes.
Yeah.
It's always 5 or more. It's more or less that, and taking on someone that is currently in training is a lot of work, because it's not as, although yes, she might be so savvy and like have a really good hand and this, if they haven't been ticked off at college for that service that they're going to provide, they can't provide it on the client. And if you've got an expectation as a business owner that even throughout their training, if you think they can do it, you still need to wait, I think. Because imagine if word got out that that actual staff member wasn't equipped. I mean, people aren't always nice.
No, they're not. They're
going to dog people in, or they're going to say, oh, she's not even qualified, or, they've got staff that aren't even qualified. I think it's always best to do it by the book.
Definitely. So for someone listening who knows something's off and they're scared to take action, what advice would you give them?
So if they've onboarded a staff member or they've gone through the probation period and they do feel like things are still off, I think a really gentle but effective way you can take or introduce a structured performance review. And it's nothing scary or over formal. I think a lot of my business owners, when I said, we need to do a performance review, they're like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to have to sit there and tell them this and that. And, and I'd be like, all right, well, let's flip this, because at the end of the day, if they get to evaluate themselves, you get to have an open conversation about so many different areas of the business, and they're doing a self-assessment. It allows you the opportunity to open up conversation about areas that you might not have thought of, but you now get to cover. So the biggest thing about a staff or a structured performance review is that it is a two-way conversation. And I think business owners might be surprised by what comes up.
It's really interesting you say that, because with Nick and I, we had a lot of different personality, kind of conflicting personalities in the early stages. And we went through this honeymoon phase, and then we kind of like were just butting heads. Like, I'm very ADHD, go with the flow. He likes to-do lists and structures and plans. And like when we were going out and traveling, he would get, annoyed because I'm just like, we'll just walk on the street and we'll find somewhere to eat. And he's like, he wants to look up the address, know how long it's going to take to walk there, how many 5-star reviews. And like, it took us so long to get to the point where we needed to just sit down. And I remember this conversation in Japan. We sat down, we ordered these like really fluffy souffle pancakes. And I just said to him, I was like, we need to be seeing each other's perspectives more, because I don't want to fight with you. I don't want to argue. I don't want to not enjoy this holiday because our egos are both trying to do different things here. And I remember we sat there, and like ever since that moment, we every like 2 weeks, because he does FIFO, every swing he comes back, we're like, are you happy in the relationship? Like, what can I do to be a better partner? What's something that you're grateful for? What have we been doing really well? Where can we improve? And instead of growing apart, we've actually gone on this beautiful journey of coming closer together. And I really look at that, and like you're saying, if you're not having those one-on-ones, if you're not doing performance reviews, you're not having the conversations that are critical to keeping that relationship alive. And I think we all hear over and over again, communication is key. But so many people avoid communication because they disguise it or mix it up with confrontation. And I think if you do have the communication frequently, then there's no need for confrontation.
It is just even more and more apparent how much in every aspect of life, being open and honest and transparent goes so much further than people can even imagine in every aspect of life.
So, Ellie, what type of skills should beauty salon owners be testing during that probationary period to know they've found the right person for the role?
So in the beauty industry, I think number one is technical skills. So role specific competency. So treatment delivery, product knowledge, speed versus quality, and constant consistency. I think those things are really important. And, you know, it's not a bad thing to actually have that checklist. So you're actually acknowledging these areas. I think customer service and client experience. So the way they're greeting their client or their consultation process. I think that, you know, it comes right down to the client comfort, making sure that the client's actually comfortable in whatever, you know, treatment you're actually performing. Their skills around upselling and rebooking.
Yep.
And listening to the customer's feedback, I think is really good. When it comes to teamwork and culture fit, communication with the team and with you obviously as a business owner. Are they reliable? Do they have a supportive attitude? And probably a really big one is like, are they open to learning? Like,
oh no, sorry, I know it all. Don't tell me what to do.
Yes. I think a lot of people come into a business and like we were saying earlier, yes, you may have learned something in another business and, you know, you've learnt that, but here in this company, we do it, we follow this protocol and this is how I want these steps taken. And if you've got valuable input, like it's going to enhance the service, absolutely bring it to the table. But at the end of the day, you have to be open to change, I suppose. And the end one would be probably professionalism and accountability. So like, how is their actual appearance? And like we said earlier, in those first 3 months, everyone's shiny and fabulous and, you know, they'll do and say everything, I suppose. And the next 3 months is when they start to settle in and become a little bit more comfortable with things. So is their appearance just as good as it was when they first, you know, onboarded? Is there time management? You know, in our industry, time management is everything. Like you don't get to be late for your client. You've got to always be on time for your client. Ownership of mistakes. And probably one other is respecting policies. I think that that's really important. Okay. So let's wrap this episode up with a quick fire round of questions for you, Sammy.
Exciting.
We're flipping it today. Okay, girlfriend. So what's a red flag in an interview that you're never going to ignore again?
Oh, I think just telling me how good you are. Like, I want to see it. Show me your portfolio. Show me through your actions. Don't just tell me how good you are. I want to know that you're competent. I want to know your knowledge and skill set, but I don't want you bragging or having a level of arrogance. I need to see that and you need to earn my trust before I just willingly trust in what you say. I think that's a huge one.
With arrogance, I think a lot of people get confused with confidence and arrogance. And this could be a whole other podcast, I suppose. But I think it's important that you're still confident in who you are, but you're not arrogant about it. All right. Must have requirement as part of onboarding.
Ooh. Well, other than the one-on-ones regularly, I would say actually having a meeting about the company culture and team values, being able to align and achieve.
Oh, this is music to my ears. Yes.
Being able to make sure that they understand what the values are, you know, and I think as well, something that I heard on a podcast that really hit me was if you give your team the company values and you're not there, if they understand what the values are and a problem comes up, they can act in a way that aligns with the values. So if, you know, the value is customer service, you know, customer centric, always come first, and an unhappy customer comes in, they're like, oh, do we refund them? Do they do this? Like it might be, hey, you already know that if there's someone unhappy, we just give them a gift voucher or we give them a free pizza. Like, you know, by default, you don't have to have everything written in words of like exactly how to handle it. But if you align yourself to the company values and culture, I think that is a really powerful tool. So I would definitely include that in part of the onboarding.
Love that. All right. What about one question you always ask, or you will always ask now you're in your interview?
Are you a narcissist?
Oh my gosh. Even if you did ask it, I know the answer.
Nah, I really think one question I would ask is, what are your career goals and what do you want out of this experience? What's going to make for a wow experience for you? I think there's always a lot of questions around, can you show me what you would do in this situation? Name a time. Like, I get that. But I think for me, and this is probably more from having my VAs, really understanding someone's career goals and where they see themselves growing in the company will give you A, are they going to stay long term? B, do they want to actually progress out of this level and move somewhere else? Or C, are they going to Europe for 3 months and we're going to be stuffed?
Yes. I think that's such a great question, because most of the time it's all about what you can provide the business, but what do you want out of this? I love that.
Feedback. Like, we want feedback on how we can make this a better workplace and a better experience for all the employees. And instead of being like, oh, I can never find any employees, I have flipped it. And based on honestly, guys, marketing, if you're really good at marketing, you can attract a lot of employees. And so for me, I've really focused on the marketing. And instead of looking at some boring job role, how do we make it fun? How do we actually showcase what it's like to work for us versus a normal venue that's like a normal pub? This is so much more fun. We've got bowling. We've got, some creative opportunities for what you can do in the bar, what you can do with food. We've got fun customers. We've got a nightclub without it being a creepy nightclub. We've got, it's a fun vibe. And so being able to sell that and attract more people versus looking for bartender versus looking for creative bartender, someone who's going to mix up cocktails and serve them in the Wild West, make it fun.
Yes. All right. Hardest lesson you've learned about hiring?
It's going to hurt. You're going to make mistakes and you're going to blame yourself. You're going to sit there like you would in a relationship, honestly, and think, how did I not see this coming sooner? And I think instead of having all the guilt and the shame and the frustration and, getting really down and out and saying, I'm never hiring again, or everyone's a bad employee, being able to go, you know what? The role we needed, that was critical for the team, but it just wasn't the right fit and the right person. And it may take some time to heal or overcome that situation. But then you start to realize if you go in the mindset that everyone's a shit hire or no one's ever going to be good enough for the role, then that's exactly what you're going to attract. But I think it's just you got to work on yourself. You got to know what you want. And then over time, you will find the right person for that role and you will build out better systems and processes so it's not so much of a shit show.
All right, I'm going to hit you with one more. What's the best leadership advice that you've ever received?
It's probably from you. I obviously have worked alongside you now for 6-7 months. And because I do all the marketing and sales and finances and you do the leadership and hiring, that's why I wanted you on this podcast, because you complement what I don't have. And I do have parts of it, but that's not my expertise. And I remember you said something about to be a good leader is to take ownership and responsibility no matter what. And you have to take that first step. And I think with everything I've done, whether it's selling out an event or whether it's hiring the wrong person, whether it is someone making a mistake or someone having an incredible win, it's always going how do I take responsibility, or how could I celebrate this person for what they've done, or how do I go, okay, what could have I done to support them better? And I think instead of having that victim mindset and blaming everyone and everything else, actually taking serious ownership of your actions and then being able to ask yourself, what's the lesson here? What do I need to do to improve? How do I support others? That has been the most valuable advice, because even though I don't like to sit in the leadership role, as in doing everything, I am a leader. I am bringing everyone together. I'm having the uncomfortable conversations. I'm handling all the problems as they come up. Maybe I'm not doing it with the team on the ground, but I'm definitely doing it in the high level. I'm liaising between accountants. I'm liaising between, mortgage broker, then family. It's a lot. And so that has probably been the one thing that's really helped me get through the hard times. So thank you.
I'm honored, my goodness, of all the incredible people you've worked with. I think letting go sometimes, or letting someone go, is never easy, but it's a part of leadership. And when done with clarity and integrity, it opens the door for someone better aligned to you than them. And they're my last words.
Yeah, you definitely got to trust your gut, back yourself, and set your people up for success from day one. That's how you protect your culture, your energy, your vision. Now, if you've loved this episode, please do not forget to subscribe to the show and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you're finding it's interesting, if, hearing about an employee dying really hit you and you're like, what the hell? I would love to hear what's your feedback, what episodes or topics you're loving the most. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye.
See ya.
Audience exclusive.